the love-hate entanglement between Optimus Prime and Megatron has finally been revealed. The origin of the story will take you to understand the youth of these two brothers, witnessing together how they went from brothers to adversaries.
I'm done saving you.
Without further ado, let's get started. The story takes place before the timeline of the first installment. At that time, humans had not yet appeared. Primus, in order to protect the Transformers universe, sacrificed his own life energy to transform into the home planet of the Transformers, Cybertron, to protect his descendants, ensuring the lineage would endure. He also created the Matrix of Leadership to ensure Cybertron had infinite energy. His descendants waged war against the Quintessence, resulting in the near extinction of the Transformers. The Matrix disappeared, and energy was depleted. The sole survivor Unicron became the leader. He began mining to sustain the planet's operation. At that time, Optimus Prime and Megatron, one was called Orion, and the other was called D16. They were just ordinary miners. Neither of them was born with a transformation drive core. One day, Orion was being chased by soldiers everywhere because he had trespassed into the archives, browsing ancient data, violating the rules of Iacon. Although Orion was the lowest-ranking mining robot, he was unwilling to live like this forever, so he wanted to find the legendary Matrix of Leadership to restore Cybertron's energy source and liberate everyone. However, his brother D16 had a different opinion. Now that the war was long over, the boss Unicron risked his life for us. In search of the Matrix, we just need to do our jobs well. Although they were good brothers, their personalities and ideals were completely opposite. Orion was a miner daring to break the norms. He believed that fate was in his own hands. However, the future Decepticon leader D16 was very straightforward. He enjoys collecting merchandise stickers of the original 13 Primes. He regards Megatron as his guiding light and a super idol. Aside from the main characters, our old friend Elita also makes an appearance. At this time, she is the epitome of a hardworking employee. She firmly believes in leadership and adheres to the rules. She believes that hard work will be recognized by her superiors. This is definitely a model employee of the modern age. The three belong to the same mining team. Every day, they work in dangerous underground mining operations. One day, a poor soul struck a vein of ore. A massive energy wave surged out instantly. The team quickly evacuated. Unexpectedly, Jazz got stuck by the ore behind them. Orion disregarded Elita's orders and ran back to save him, though he managed to rescue Jazz with sheer strength. The entire mine soon collapsed as a result. Thanks to Elita's timely intervention, a greater disaster was avoided.
I get fired because of you.
Oh, please. They're not gonna fire you.
Elita 1, you're fired.
What? Why?
For robots like Elita, who had limited functions and were non-geared, if they made a mistake, they had to report to the Waste Management Department. Orion and D16 wanted to plead for their friend, but they were met with a fist directly in return.
Aren't you tired of being treated like we're nothing? He had every right to hit me. I interfered.
As soon as the words left their mouths, Unicron suddenly started a live broadcast. Unfortunately, he didn't bring any good news. The Matrix of Leadership was still missing. To uplift the demoralized spirits, Unicron decided to give all miners a day off tomorrow, so everyone would have time to watch the Iacon 5000 race. This is a high-energy racing competition across Iacon. Only transforming Transformers can participate. In the middle of the night, Orion woke D16 up. He proposed sneaking into the Iacon race. If they could defeat a high-ranking Transformer, it would prove that they were equally capable. But D16 was reluctant to take the risk. He also said, "We are just non-transforming mining robots. If they were caught, they would have to return to the lower ranks." Orion appeared to compromise, but he didn't give up on this idea. Soon, it was the day of the race. D16 was very excited to see Unicron. Unexpectedly, Orion dragged him through the crowd. They took a side path to the back of the racing venue. The view here was better than in the stands. It was almost like watching from the track itself. The two just in time to catch Unicron's entrance. All the competitors transformed under his command. They prepared to start on the starting line. D16 was marveling at how great the view was. In the next moment, he was equipped with a flight device by Orion. With a thud, he fell into the racing arena. With things having come to this, D16 could only compete in the race. The audience quickly noticed that two mining robots had infiltrated This discovery immediately ignited the event. Yet Orion and D-16 didn't even have a countdown. Blackwing had always disapproved of them. He launched a deadly attack at D-16. Fortunately, Orion caught his partner just in time. But soon, their speed disadvantage became apparent. Orion had a sudden inspiration. He grabbed onto a competitor in the air. D-16 also stepped onto the rotating body of the competitor. Unfortunately, soon, they were thrown off by the free ride. They fell far behind the other competitors. At this moment, Orion noticed a machine beside them. They made their way directly above Blackwing. They ranked in the top 3. Next up was the magnetic tunnel. The robots ahead were too reckless. They were instantly sucked into the tunnel, but Orion and D-16 worked together to break through. They successfully took first place. Unexpectedly, parts flew out of the tunnel, knocking D-16 down. Orion disregarded their ranking and helped his partner up to keep moving forward. In the next moment, Claudia surged ahead to claim the championship. The two had just gotten up from the ground. Other competitors quickly dashed toward the finish line. In the end, they didn't even have a ranking. They also faced a penalty for their violation, but Orion had no regrets. Even if it was just a second of freedom, he felt a sense of relief. Soon, Unicron personally came over. Not only was he not angry, Unicron praised the two highly, because Orion and D-16's performance inspired all the mining robots. The entire team's work efficiency improved. Unicron had Black Widow escort the two to his personal service facility for care and maintenance. He finished speaking and hurried to the surface. Just after Unicron left, Blackwing came out. He threw Orion and D-16 into the waste processing facility. There, they met B-127, who is better known to us as Bumblebee. B-127's job was to oversee the incineration of waste and sort out recyclable materials. He was trapped in this dark place, and he was on the verge of a mental breakdown. B-127 even made 3 little figures out of trash to serve as his friends for company. Orion expressed understanding. He enthusiastically greeted the mannequins. Unexpectedly, he accidentally broke one of the mannequin's parts. A small shard of light fell, revealing a segment of footage. In the footage, one of the primes, Alpha Trion, was battling the invading Quintessence. Before his death, he transmitted a set of coordinates. This was likely the place where the predecessors sacrificed themselves. Orion believed that there might be clues to the matrix of leadership here, so he wanted to take the risk to search for it. Of course, D-16 was unwilling to agree.
You tricked me into running, which got us stuck down here in this waste hole with this, really cool guy. Oh, thank you.
Despite D-16's strong will, Orion precisely knew his friend's weakness. Just imagine, if you could personally hand the matrix of leadership to your idol Unicron, what an honor that would be. D-16 was swayed by Orion's words. As for B-127, as long as he could escape this place, he would be fine with eating all the trash underground. So the three climbed into the waste processing vehicle. They prepared to sneak their way to the surface. Unexpectedly, as soon as they mixed into the compartment, they were spotted by Alita. She was about to find security to trigger the alarm. The garbage truck began to operate automatically. Alita had no choice but to turn around and run toward the engine room. The three immediately chased after her. Unexpectedly, the vehicle suddenly tilted upward. At a 90-degree angle, Orion lost his balance and crashed into his companions. Meanwhile, Alita was as agile as a monkey, and in the blink of an eye, she squeezed out of the compartment. Orion felt helpless. He could only lead his brothers to chase after her. The four clung to the horizontal bars of the vehicle. As they crawled forward, the vehicle suddenly turned, and the centrifugal force nearly threw them off. Seizing the moment, Orion grabbed Alita's ankle. She raised her fist, ready to act, but she was utterly shocked by the scene before her. It turned out that they had followed the garbage truck to the surface. The unfamiliar scenery was vast and enchanting. Orion finally found the opportunity to tell Alita their mission objective. However, she was afraid of being deceived by Orion. She still decided to turn the machine around and report to her superiors. Suddenly, D-16 noticed that the ore behind them was rapidly expanding and approaching. B-127 immediately turned and ran. The boulder followed closely behind, instantly twisting the garbage truck's track into chaos. The entrance back into the compartment was already sealed. The out-of-control garbage truck was like a headless fly, colliding with the boulders blocking its path. They were experiencing a feeling of flying in a vehicle. At this moment, the garbage truck dove at an inhumane angle. The four were thrown directly to the ground. Elita had just regained her senses. She immediately punched Orion in the face. At this moment, Iacon and the garbage truck had both vanished. They could only head toward the coordinates. B-127 had a habit of chatting affectionately. He rambled on the entire way. Soon, the four arrived at a field of red grass. Suddenly, a sound came from the distance. Then, mechanical deer activated their alarms. They fled the area as if they were mad. Animal instincts are never wrong. Orion ran alongside them in a frenzy. The four hid beside a massive stone pillar. A quintessence ship flew across the sky. It began scanning for life forms on the surface. Without delay, they quickly took off running. Just as Orion and D-16 were about to be scanned, he yanked B-127 down to hide under the pillar. They ultimately escaped disaster. The ship disappeared into the clouds. After finishing its scan, Orion was curious about what they were looking for. After all, the quintessence hadn't appeared for 50 cycles. The four pressed on in search of the truth. Speeding up their pace, they soon arrived at a uniquely shaped cave. They carefully explored inside the cave. To their surprise, they saw the bodies of the primes. D-16 reached out to touch his idol Megatron. His feelings were indescribable. The matrix that was originally embedded in the prime's body had been pried away by someone. Orion looked around. He saw light within the rocks. Orion moved the stones aside. He discovered that underneath was Alpha Trion. 50 cycles had passed, but his spark remained unextinguished. B-127 handed Orion an energy cube. He successfully activated Alpha Trion. Orion briefly explained the situation on Cybertron. Alpha Trion suddenly interrupted him, asking, "Where has your transformation drive core gone?" As Alpha Trion recounted, an untold past unfolded. It turned out that the current leader Unicron is a traitor. Unicron deceived the primes by saying he intercepted enemy communications, claiming that the quintessence commanders would hold a secret meeting. As long as they took the opportunity to eliminate them, they could completely end the war. The leaders believed Unicron's words. They came to this cave to obtain the information he had. The quintessence had long set up an ambush. Though the primes were outnumbered, they united as one. Victory was in sight, but Unicron took advantage of their injuries to stage a coup, and he pried away the matrix of leadership. Little did they know, the matrix had its own consciousness. It judged that Unicron could not lead the Transformers. It turned to ashes and disappeared right there. The flow of energon on Cybertron stagnated as a result. Later, Unicron deceived the populace and became the leader of Cybertron. Unicron also used the search for the Matrix as an excuse to go to the surface. He secretly submitted to the quintessence, even to provide energy for the enemy. He dedicated all the energy elements extracted by the miners to the quintessence. What's even more infuriating is that Unicron actually covered up the early memories of the Transformers. In fact, every Transformer was born with a transformation core, but Unicron, in order to consolidate his rule, privately reclaimed the transformation cog. Unicron divided the Transformers into classes, forcing them to remain as mining robots. After the four learned the truth, they were extremely angry, especially D-16, who could hardly believe it. Alpha Trion saw hope in the young ones, so he taught the four members of Orion the transformation cores of Nexus Prime, Onyx Prime, Alchemist Prime, and Micronus Prime, respectively. They underwent their first transformation, gaining the ability to transform. In addition, Alpha Trion embedded evidence of the truth into an energy cube and handed it to Orion. He instructed Orion to return to Iacon and expose Unicron's facade. A booming sound approached the cave. Alpha Trion had to stay behind to deal with these troubles. He transformed his shape and fought against Unicron's minions with his last strength. He bought time for the young ones. On the other side, Orion and the others had just received the cores. They temporarily could not grasp how to use them, so they quickly exposed themselves to the enemy's line of fire.
Transform! Look at wheels! I need wheels!
As they fled, they fumbled around. Finally, at a crucial moment, they awakened their talents. After all, this was an innate ability of the Transformers. In the process, D-16 became radical and angry. He slowly shed his former self. At the same time, Alpha Trion fell into Unicron's hands.
There were others in the cave with you. Who are they?
They are to be your undoing.
Upon hearing this, Unicron directly killed Alpha Trion. Then he instructed Black Widow to pursue the fugitives. In the deep night, Orion sensed something was off with D-16. He wanted to step forward, and comfort his friend, but their ideological differences grew wider. Orion believed that, as long as the populace was awakened, and all unifying forces were gathered, they could certainly overthrow Unicron's rule. But D16 was an extreme rationalist. His entire early life was spent worshipping and trusting Unicron, unconditionally supporting and obeying his superiors. But now, Unicron had betrayed that trust. D16 was unwilling to trust anyone anymore. He wanted to take down Unicron himself. Just as he finished speaking, they were attacked by the Cybertronian Guard. These were once the esteemed protectors of Iacon.
That's Starscream? And you're Shockwave? And Soundwave? Gosh, raise your hand if Wave is in your name. There's a lot of Wave.
Starscream stated, "We were once part of the elite guard, but we also witnessed Unicron's betrayal. We saw the fall of the leaders, so the guard has gone underground. They want to do everything they can to sabotage Unicron's plans. They captured Orion and the others to gather information about the Energon trains and the ways to enter the mines." Upon hearing this, Orion quickly said, "We are allies. We can unite everyone on Cybertron to fight against Unicron together." Unfortunately, Starscream did not believe him. He did not believe Cybertron could unite. He believed in solving problems through power and force. D16 was not interested in forming alliances, hiding in a ship like the Guard, pretending to be a powerful figure. It's actually an act of hiding in the dark and not daring to take risks. This would never subdue D16.
You think you can insult me and just walk away? No one leaves here unless I say so.
D16's response struck him hard. Fueled by anger, he attacked Starscream. The Guard were all devotees of power. They immediately called out D16's name. The cheers activated his abilities. D16 truly realized that relying on others was not as effective as relying on oneself. Since everything was a lie, then I would build a new order upon the ruins. D16 successfully gained the support of the elite guard. He prepared to directly assault Iacon and eliminate Unicron. From across the crowd, Orion looked at his former friend. He hadn't had the chance to persuade him. When Unicron's minions arrived on the scene, Orion could only suppress all his emotions. He called to his companions to fight against Black Widow together. Black Widow charged in with an unstoppable force. In an instant, she pounced on D16, grabbing him and flying into the sky. Elita and the others had no time to spare. They were fighting with all their might. Orion was buried under debris while trying to save her. In this battle, D16 and B-127 were captured. The next day, Elita dug Orion out from the rubble. Unfortunately, the evidence given by Alpha Trion was already shattered. Orion couldn't help but deny everything he had done. After all, this disaster was caused by him entirely. Though Elita accused him of always violating order, this guy was always full of hope.
You're inspiring. You can envision a better future that no one else can see.
Elita's words gave Orion confidence. He had to pick himself up and quickly rescue D16 and B-127. But before that, he needed to recruit allies first. Orion called over Shockwave and Soundwave to explain. "Our friends have been captured by Unicron. We need to unite and launch an attack on the tower's peak."
Why should we follow you? We will follow you!
Meanwhile, inside the tower of Iacon, Unicron planned to frame D16 and Starscream. He would falsely claim they had been collaborating with the Quintessence to deliberately hinder his search for the Matrix. At that time, Unicron would publicly execute D16 and the others in front of everyone in Iacon. D16 would not kneel before a traitor. Unicron, enraged and humiliated, knocked D16 down. Immediately after, he ripped the Megatronus sticker off D16. During the battle on the mountaintop, Unicron had taken the opportunity to ambush. He not only killed Megatronus, but also took his core. Now, he placed the sticker on D16's chest. Unicron directly welded the symbol onto D16. This was the initial form of the Decepticon insignia. The scene shifted back to Orion. To gather more allies, he returned to Iacon alone. At this moment, the mining robots had been working for 22 shifts straight. They were arguing with Blackwing. The latter was clenching his fist, ready to strike. In a critical moment, Orion punched Blackwing away. The miners whispered among themselves. They didn't understand how Orion had suddenly leveled up. Moreover, Unicron claimed he had tragically died due to injuries from a match. Orion crouched down upon hearing this. he revealed the gear core inside him, and explained the truth discovered on the surface. He told the miners that becoming a transformer was not dependent on the gear on their chest, but on the spark within their core. As long as you still have hope for a better life in your hearts, join my ranks and fight against Unicron together. Elita was bringing reinforcements. We will not fight alone. The mining robots had nothing left to lose. Rather than dying in the dark underground mines, it would be better to resist at least once. Elita received Orion's signal and immediately drove the Energon train to assemble. At this moment, D-16 struggled to stand, refusing to give in. Unicron was about to kill him, but then saw the train passing outside. Black Widow ordered her subordinates to enter battle mode. A great battle was about to erupt. The guard launched out of the train car, one after another. Both sides began fighting in midair. Bullets rained down like a storm. Elita looked at the countless enemies, feeling a sense of despair in her heart. Fortunately, Orion arrived just in time with the miners. Their arrival instantly turned the tide. In the chaos, Black Widow captured Orion and brandished her weapon. However, she overlooked the towering structure behind her. By the time Black Widow realized, she had no choice but to release Orion and flee. The ship crashed directly into the tower's peak. Orion rushed over to rescue D-16. Soundwave followed closely behind, releasing all the prisoners.
Yes! Whoa! Whoa! I got a battle mask! It appeared with this guy trying to... Knife hands? I have knife hands!
The main group quickly dismantled the armaments at the tower's peak. Unicron could no longer stay hidden, and finally revealed himself. He transformed into his ultimate form, and launched a lethal attack. The four barely dodged the powerful onslaught. Orion had a plan in mind, but it required the memory module within Black Widow. In the next moment, Black Widow tackled Elita. The two slid off the tower's peak in an instant. Orion warned Elita, "Don't damage Black Widow. Quickly take her to the broadcast station. We'll meet there." Elita couldn't help but retort, "Easy for you to say." Black Widow kicked her away. Fortunately, Elita was indeed formidable. She quickly regained control and began to fight back. Black Widow was being overpowered and had no chance to retaliate. On the other side, Orion intercepted B-127, who was attacking. The two transformed into vehicle mode and headed to the broadcast station. B-127 was very fond of his hand blade.
These are not the bad guys.
Why did you cut the door?
D-16 was grappling with Unicron, refusing to give up at all. This situation tells us that the power of backlash is not to be underestimated. However, Unicron was indeed powerful now. Soon, D-16 was pinned to the ground, unable to move. Meanwhile, Orion accessed Black Widow's memory template and directly connected to the broadcast station's equipment. He broadcasted on all the screens in Iacon. Hearing his own voice, Unicron quickly stopped. At this moment, all the Transformers saw his treasonous disgrace. Unicron was completely flustered. D-16 took the opportunity to grab him and jump off the tower. He was in a bloodthirsty rage. D-16 raised the cannon. He was about to finish off the enemy. Unexpectedly, Orion suddenly rushed over and knocked him aside. He explained that rebuilding Iron Fortress City couldn't start with execution. However, D-16 still kicked Orion away. D-16 stepped forward and grabbed Orion, who was about to fall. He didn't understand why the other party was doing this.
I'm done saving you.
Actually, Orion just wanted to publicly trial and deal with the Lord of Heaven's enemies. Vigilantism and violence would become a bad example, but it was too late to say anything now. He fell into the depths of Cybertron with his broken body. In front of all the people of Iron Fortress, he directly ripped the Lord of Heaven's enemies in half and extracted his core. Once a person with such obsession gains power, it will eventually develop into an extreme attitude of death to those who stand in my way. Fortunately, there was still a glimmer of hope. The supreme consciousness of Cybertron recognized that Orion possessed true leadership qualities, so it entrusted the leader module to him. From this point on, Orion evolved and upgraded to become Optimus Prime. At the same time, D16 also installed the core of Megatron, transforming into the fearsome Megatron. A new generation of villains was born. Megatron commanded Starscream and others to unleash destruction. He was ready to completely destroy everything created by the Lord of Heaven's enemies and kill all of his followers. If this goes on, Megatron will kill everyone. B-127 and Elita desperately tried to stop him, but the two were no match for Megatron at all. At a critical moment, Optimus Prime finally returned to Iron Fortress. He stood before Megatron, no longer the small miners who shared hardships, but fighting for their own beliefs. They had taken different paths, yet more tragically, the things they supported were the same, the freedom and happiness of the people. In the end, Megatron was defeated. Optimus Prime told him to leave with his guard, never to return to Cybertron again. You have betrayed my trust, and that of Iron Fortress. Megatron left with his supporters, and a new era for Cybertron finally arrived. The struggle between Autobots and Decepticons began. The film ends here. In one sentence, the film's content can be summarized as the different choices of the working class revolutionary path. One wants to take the socialist route, while the other wants to follow the capitalist route. Good brothers can often share hardship, but not enjoy the same fortune. It's surprising how cheerful Optimus Prime was before putting on his mask. Before his dark transformation, Megatron was just a well-behaved little fan. Watching the growth process of the two of them, it really evokes 1,000 feelings. The trope of close friends becoming archenemies is indeed endlessly fascinating. It's completely like the Iron Man version of Magneto and Professor X. The plot is smooth, and the characters are well developed. The pacing is handled very well. Even the Transformers rise up against oppression, while we modern workers bear no complaints. Who can watch this without saying that the people are more resolute than the robots?